Hello and welcome to Cryptic Corner, where we explore entities of the unexplained, supernatural, paranormal, and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee, and today we are taking an adventure into the Trinity Alps. Where are the Trinity Alps? Well, when you think Alps, most people think of areas of Europe, but you know what? We're going to be on the other side of the Atlantic. Actually, maybe say the other side of the Pacific would be better because we're in California. We are visiting Cali today, and we're going to talk about some giant salamanders. So we're going to attack this from a couple of angles, but first we're going to hit it from a skeptical point of view. Right? We got Lil Water Bill, who I've gotten over him using a name that's so similar to mine for his Cryptid Corner, because Cryptic Corner has been mine for years, but I'm cool with it because I like his content. But we're also going to look at some expeditions going out and looking for this sucker. So, yeah, and this channel's fairly skeptical about things, but not everybody's going to be skeptical about it. We got this Cryptid of the Corn folks, but they're just a podcast, which I don't, it was not great. I don't love it, but we'll deal with what we got. Actually, before we get into it, we'll just start. Okay. So, the Trinity Alps giant salamander. Let's go.
Sifting through the many waterways of the region. If hiking alone and you choose to take a break near a stream at night, you may hear a groggy croak. When going to investigate, you may come face to face with a slimy menace at the end of your flashlight. A salamander.
I'll be the slimy menace at the end of your flashlight.
The size of a crocodile, potentially larger than any salamander in the world. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, a series all things cryptids, and today we are going to look into the Trinity Alps giant salamander. The Trinity Alps are a mountain range in northern California in Trinity and Siskiyou counties. The range is part of the climate.
That's a pretty good map too. You get an idea of where these things are being sighted. They do have a lot of overlap. Slimy menacing thing at the end of my flashlight. Oh, Mark. If it lasts more than 4 hours, I would call a doctor. Did he steal my name? I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so. I've been doing this a lot longer than him, though. I've been doing this since 2020. 5 years under my belt of Cryptic Corner. We should do a 5-year anniversary, and I guess it would be August. Is when I started.
Mammoth Mountain system with the Californian coastal ranges to the west and the Cascade Range to the east. The Trinity Alps is best known for its scenic views and its distinct alpine wilderness. The Trinity Alps wilderness possesses the second highest number of conifer species in the world, mainly due to its geological location being nestled between the Mediterranean climate of the south and the rainy weather of the American northwestern coast. And along with its many lakes, rivers, and streams, Trinity Alps is home to a lively wilderness. And one species of animal that is an excellent indicator of healthy ecosystems are salamanders.
And amphibians in general, yeah. We'll call it the Cryptoversary, and get all the chuds to tune in for financial advice on how to buy giant salamanders. Who wants to be a slimy menace? Let's see. I'm going to do a poll. Start a poll. Who is a slimy menace? All right. Now you all can vote on the poll. See who the slimy menace really is. So cryptocurrency. There's actually, it's funny because Jason Fox just sent me a thing about crypto or cryptid currency, cryptid coins. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of it. It was funny. Jason, where are you? I get spammed by all these dudes, and then I lose my actual conversations I'm interested in having. Yeah, but here we go. Yeah, hold on. I'll get them pulled up. I gotta minimize that. I found out if I hit the F key, I can make my screen smaller. Yeah, here's my cryptid currency. Oh, I'm tripping over my own tongue. Look at all these slimy menaces. My chat is at least 50% slimy menaces and 44% Sumami being a slimy menace. So they know you, girl. All right, so that's yeah. So there is cryptic currency. You got Bigfoot, Mothman, Chupacabra, and Nessie. But I digress. Let's continue on, shall we?
And Trinity Alps is rife with salamanders, such as the rough-skinned newt, they are salamanders, long-toed salamanders, northwestern salamanders, Ensatina, and the coastal giant salamander. But according to local legend, there are said to be colossal salamanders living in the lakes of Trinity Alps that put all others to shame. The Trinity Alps giant salamanders are said to call the waters of the Trinity Alps wilderness home, living in streams similar to Chinese and Japanese giant salamanders, along with lakes and rivers in the region, and dwarfing all known native species. These salamanders are reported as dark brown or black, sometimes with spots with broad heads and wide eyes, and are also reported to either croak or growl. The accounts kind of vary. Like many large salamander species, the size of these salamanders varies.
So it looks like, are you all wanting slimy menace t-shirts? Is that a request? Two of my choices were the same. I'm only slimy when ovulating. Yes, you gotta be coated with that thin layer of mucus to attract the,
with most reports claiming them to be around 2 to 3 feet long, with some standout reports claiming sizes as massive as 9 feet long. Even the smaller sighted salamanders beat out the largest confirmed salamanders species in the area, that being the coastal giant salamander, which reaches sizes of about 13 to 14 inches in length. But the larger salamander sightings put all salamanders to shame. For perspective, the current
Oh, Ember, thank you. Ember's been a member for 14 months. That's over a year. Yes, you've got your wings. So proud of you. Thank you for sticking with me so long.
Contenders for the largest salamanders are the critically endangered Chinese giant salamander and the South China giant salamander, with both of them reaching lengths of up to 6 feet and weighing about 110 pounds. And the largest salamander of all time so far goes to the extinct Matthews giant salamander, which was endemic to the American West during the Miocene and is estimated to have reached a maximum of 7 feet and 7 inches in length.
Who wants to have to see it like being? Oh, you know what it was? Oh shit, I know what it was. I had to turn this thing off. Hold on, because it was I found out what makes the volume go down, but now it's now it's Mander.
Reports of the Trinity Alps salamanders at their maximum sizes are to be believed. They would easily be the largest salamanders of all time, at least what we know of. And speaking about those reports, let's get into a few. The Hoopa and Wentu native peoples who have called Northern California home for thousands of years all have many stories of large beings that have dwelled in the streams of the Trinity Alps wilderness, which could serve as myths or symbolism, but are still noteworthy as overlooking native reports is a great way to delay advancements. From the late 1800s into the early 1900s,
So, if you're keeping up so far, it's basically like saying, hey, there's a West Coast hellbender, but at least some of the reports, 2 to 3 foot long salamander, which is believable, right? But we'll get into the gigantic sizes of this thing. We're talking like listen or like labyrinthodon callbacks as far as the size. If you don't know, like a labyrinthodon, Coolosuchus, there were these giant salamanders that lived up into the Jurassic, except for Coolosuchus, which lived until the Cretaceous, like lived with dinosaurs because it was down in like Australia and Antarctica, Gondwana land, where it was too cold for crocodiles to fill that niche, so they filled that niche instead. I love me some Coolosuchus.
trappers, prospectors, and hunters would occasionally report unusually large salamanders in the area, but their reports tended to be vague and were written off. Until one of the earliest documented sightings would come in the 1920s with Frank L. Griffith, when he would spot 5 salamanders at the bottom of a lake, ranging from 5 to 9 feet in length. He would attempt to catch one with his fishing rod, and he would even hook one as well, but the salamander was far too strong, and he'd have to let go of the rod and would be ultimately mauled by the salamander. Griffith's story would catch the attention of biologist Thomas L. Rogers, who would make 4 attempts to find the giant salamanders, but with each attempt, he would end it in failure. Roger believed that the salamanders could have either been massive Pacific giant salamanders or relatives of the Chinese and Japanese giant salamanders. In 1939, a giant salamander fitting the description of the Trinity Alps giant salamander would
try
be
that.
caught in the
That should fix
Sacramento
that.
River, and
I should
was
not be
even
peeking
kept
this
alive
bad now
in the
either.
fisherman's bathtub, and was in good
Hopefully.
health.
Let me
The
know.
salamander was about
I fixed
25
the
to
noise
30
gate.
inches in length,
Let me
and would
let me clarify. I fixed the noise gate. Hopefully, it doesn't take up too much of the show. Me messing with my audio issues. I just changed it on Thursday. I'm so sick of audio issues. Maybe I just need to get a better microphone. I don't know. I've had this one for years. Nothing seems to be wrong with it.
be observed by George C. Myers for nearly 30 minutes, who himself had
Yeah,
experience in
Diplocalus
handling
was a-
Japanese giant
Diplocalus was a big salamander too, about the size of a hellbender, but it had like a boomerang head. Yeah, I love all the weird giant salamanders. Let me know if the audio is better on that though, because I did. I just flipped that gate thing back on. I was messing with it earlier, but I was flipping the wrong one.
salamanders, and was briefly familiar with the Chinese species through photos. And he believed it to be one of those salamanders, but could not match it with either of the species due to differences in its coloration, entertaining the idea that it could even be a new species related to them, or
I imagine trying to wrangle a giant salamander like you see them guys holding is probably like a lot like trying to handle a greased pig, or even a big fish for that matter.
probably the hellbender, the largest salamander in North America, which is typically around the size and description of the specimen captured. Myers would publish his findings in 1951, and after this sighting, there would be a big ramp up in activity around these salamanders. In the mid-50s, an animal handler named Vern Hardin would report seeing a giant salamanders in a remote lake in Trinity Alps, and even reportedly caught one, and he'd end up releasing it because there was a snowstorm coming or something, and he apparently caught an 8-foot salamander, so that dude was probably either yoked as hell, or the salamander gave him it, or he's making it up. Claims like
An 8-foot salamander, I'm going to need more evidence than someone's anecdotal story. And if you catch an 8-foot salamander, you don't let it go. You just broke a world record. I mean, obviously you want to try to keep it alive, but goodness gracious.
that of Hardin would catch the attention of Jesuit scholar, explorer, and naturalist Father Hubbard, who would set out on several expeditions with his brother, Captain John D. Hubbard, in the late 50s, with Hubbard even claiming to have established the existence of the salamanders in 1960, although no record of their expeditions exists, and it seems either made up or is...
I looked for expedition information too on this. I do have some expeditions that took place, all of them within the last 5 years looking for this animal, but all came up goose egg too, as far as I can tell.
Lost media. Also in 1960, big year for these salamanders, mind you, several expeditions would be carried out in search of the giant salamanders, including Robert C. Stebbins of the University of California, Berkeley, Nathan Cohen of Modesto Junior College, Thomas Rogers, known for the 4 prior expeditions with the backing of Chico State College, and another independent search from Bigfoot hunter Tom Slick's Pacific Northwest Expedition Team.
And there's a reason why all the Bigfoot hunters get caught up on this one, because this animal is also in the vicinity of Bluff Creek, which is, the famous Bigfoot location. So people will go out looking for, the Bigfooters will go out looking for this particular cryptid while they're in the area of Bigfoot. So they kind of tether those two together.
Who were told to keep an eye out for the giant salamander while looking for Bigfoot. And a side note, these guys really did not want to look for the salamander, and seemingly all they wanted to do was look for Bigfoot. Screw the big lizard crocodile, we're looking for Bigfoot here. It's some serious business. The expeditions all came back with nada, zilch, with Rogers' team being accompanied by 10 goofsters who would sometimes mistake logs in the water for salamanders, so he probably had...
The early reports of the Trinity Alps giant salamander had it like a crocodile on some occasions. What about old Mother Hubbard in the cupboard? If you catch an 8-foot salamander, you eat that son of a bitch and steal its powers, says John Fabiano. Well, that's one way to approach it. Hail Bigfoot. I had to trap and release a little skink on my parents' back porch the other day. It was so cute. My mom was freaking out. Aw. Surely Florida's just chock full of lizards. So your mom should, if she wants to live in lizard country, she'd get used to lizards. But, you can't help what you're freaked out about. Oh, right. While you were looking for the thing that doesn't exist, keep an eye out for the other thing that doesn't exist.
A really aggravating time. Oh, look, there it is. It's a log. Oh my god. In the 60s, forest rangers would report spotting a large salamander in Trinity Alps, but no evidence. And the last expedition would be held kind of recently in 1997, led by Japanese-American writer Kyle Mizukami, when he would come back empty-handed, with any giant salamander slipping away from prying eyes. Now that we got all of our reports settled up, how do we explain this? Well, in CrypticCorner fashion, we're going to start with the wackiest theory, that being that these salamanders could have been distant relatives of Matthew's giant salamander, if not a surviving group of them.
Andreas Matthewsi, yeah.
I typically am on board with giving plausibility to a recently extinct species living on in isolation, but in the case of the Matthews giant salamander, these things were estimated to have gone extinct millions of years ago, with Ice Age climate of North America being just a completely different world for these salamanders to exist in. On top of that, next to nothing is known about these salamanders, as information on them is exceptionally sparse.
Okay, yeah, hold on, I want to check something here, because we've only got 15 votes on the poll, but there's at least 23 of y'all watching right now. So I need more votes to find out who the slimy menaces are. It's basically 7% of y'all said I'm a slimy menace, which is true, at least certain nights of the week. But Sumami is definitely a slimy menace, as professed in the chat herself. And you yourself may indeed be a slimy menace, so you got to vote for that too. All right. And somebody's driving, huh? Who's driving? The mammoth is sad because he knows his salamander friends are going to die. Our salamander friend. I thought that was a salamander too at first, but it's just a rock. Maybe he's scared of a salamander?
So, them surviving in a park in California, one of the most populated states in the Union, undetected, seems pretty unlikely, but I will say not impossible. Many theories are proposed.
Oh, Al's driving. Good morning, Al.
As to what the salamanders could have been by the many people searching
Thank
for
you,
them, with Rogers and Muck.
Thank you, Rainbow. Yeah. I've been feeling very blonde lately, so I'm leaning into it. No, that's lore from this week. These salamanders were called slimy menaces, Maya. That's what he called them at the beginning of the video. So we're just rolling with it.
Myers both thinking that these could be relatives of the Asian giant salamanders or just straight up either of the species living on in America. Matthew's giant salamander was a distant ancestor of the current Asian salamanders. So this
It's better to say a distant cousin than an ancestor, but I'm not going to be too picky. And if you missed, speaking of ancestors, if you missed the dire wolf coverage that I did with Grayson Hawk and Dr. Dino on Tuesday night, it was really fun. We crushed those colossal dire wolves. The nonsense that they were dire wolves at all. They're 100% gray wolf, not a single trace of dire wolf DNA in them. So no dire wolf genes living on. The howls of these wolves, pups, are the howls of gray wolves. So just stop with the paleo propaganda. I get why they're doing it and why they need to sell the notion that they created dire wolves in order to get their investors on board. And they do, is good work that they're doing, like the work they'll do with Canis rufus, the red wolf, which is extremely endangered. So it's important to try to help them instead of trying to bring back some Ice Age distant cousin of wolves that you can't bring back with wolf DNA because they're not in the same genus.
Could be an extension of the prior theory, but I want to focus on them, these salamanders being one or the other, the Japanese or the Chinese or the South China. A plausible explanation for them being either a Japanese or Chinese giant salamander could be someone who kept them as an exotic pet and released them into the wild once they got way too big to handle. The duration of the sightings could make sense as well, as salamanders can live as old as 60 years old, with some undocumented claims of Chinese giant salamanders living for 200 years. And the lakes and rivers of Trinity Alps are heaven for giant salamanders, with plenty of food and room to wiggle around in.
Oh, sorry, right-handed Sith, you are absolutely right. Dire wolves would have had fur, not genes. Dang, Bree, that's disappointing. What's disappointing, sweetie? I didn't mean to disappoint you, native atheist. I'm so sorry. What about the thylacine? Do you know they're trying to bring they're talking about bringing the thylacine back by putting it in a dunnard? Which a dunnard is about the size of a mouse. Now, Grayson mentioned that earlier or on that show as well. And dunnards are not filling the mouse niche in their environment, though, even though they do kind of look like mice. They fill more of a vole kind of niche. They are a insectivorous creature. And don't eat grains and veggies like most rodents do, but when you get that size, there's only in your quadruped, there's only a certain amount of body plans that are going to be sufficient.
Perhaps, in the 60s, the last of these salamanders died off, either of old age or from getting picked off by a predatory animal like a bear or something. One of the most commonly accepted theories is that these salamanders are a population of hellbenders, as stated prior. Hellbenders are mainly found in the American Northeast and northern corners of the Mississippi, but perhaps isolated populations exist in parts of the northwestern United States, including Trinity Alps and Sacramento River. Regarding the Sacramento River salamander, I in particular believe this was a hellbender, given that size and the description nearly perfectly matched it. Myers did entertain the idea of the salamander being a new species, or perhaps one of the Asian salamanders, but
with hellbenders, most people think, like, when you think of hellbenders, you think of Kentucky and Virginia, the Appalachia region, right? Maybe in the Carolinas a bit, but that middle Appalachia habitat. And yeah, they do come down to some of the tributaries off the Mississippi River and things, but they're most commonly associated with those fast cold waters of the Appalachian Mountains. Now, if you go look at the Trinity Alps in comparison, yeah, you're seeing a lot in common between, cold, fast-moving water with lots of deep, still ponds here and there scattered throughout the habitat. So it does the West Coast doesn't necessarily not have a good environment for hellbenders or for other giant salamanders. It's just that there's no evidence that they live there. And the giant salamanders of Asia live in similar types of environments.
It wasn't anything concrete. Cryptozoologists like to make that like set in stone that, he hard, thought of that, but it was more of him just proposing the idea and playing with it. But he also gave weight to the hellbender hypothesis. Perhaps the salamanders seen in Trinity Alps as well were hellbenders, either a population that avoided humans or pet salamanders that were dumped in the lake when they got too big to take care of. Perhaps these salamanders reached massive...
So, I should take offense to that slip. I'm a Sith, not a Jedi. Yeah, I'm more of a Sith, too. Hellbenders. So... Is that like an airbender? Yeah, except for they bend hellfire and they're salamanders. Better hellbenders than hellraisers. The box, you opened it, we come. Let's not waste good suffering, right? But hellbenders are the largest North American amphibian, and they get pretty big. They get about 23 inches, I think, 22 or 23 inches. They're pretty large water puppies, but they're also highly endangered. So there's not a lot of them left, and it wouldn't surprise me if people hadn't, heard of them, but they are... Oh, what's going on here? Hold on. There we go. But they are the state amphibian of West Virginia, I believe. Someone's fact checked me on that, but I would love for this to be. See, and this is one of the cryptids, right? That I feel like is kind of plausible to be as something that exists or existed until recent time. Ooh, hey, my unfinished journey. Good morning. Hail Nero, Hive Psi, and real scientific progress. Thank you. Don't make a fake dire wolf, like and share the stream instead. Yes, don't make a fake dire wolf. That's just blah. That's just a blah thing to do.
Subsides in the lakes, leading to them being exaggerated by people seeing them. After all, when people do see something big, they tend to exaggerate their size, especially when you're looking in it from the water, where getting an exact size estimate is always going to be a hard ask. And of course,
you did say hard ask, not a hard ass. Just to be clear, I don't want anybody getting too excited, But the exaggeration of size, I can't think of any better example than great white sharks, because, if you look at the Guinness Book of World Records, people see great white sharks or see sharks in the water and be like, oh, it's a 35-foot great white. There's never been a great white that's been recorded over 23 feet, but, people will report that because humans are incredibly bad at estimating size, especially over a distance, and we do tend to exaggerate, especially when we get emotional about it, like when we're scared. When you see something that scares you or surprises you or takes you by, whoa, oh no, what's that? You're going to exaggerate the size. Like, I remember when I was a kid, we used to play in the creek down by my house, right? And there was a place where the creek spilled over over a rock ledge, and there was a big water pool underneath there, right? And there were some rocks, and there, curled up in the rock, was the snake that, in my memory and in my mind, was as big as a freaking anaconda. It was huge, and I remember it that way, but I was a little kid, and I know that I know what it was now. It was a northern water snake, and they don't get over 6 foot long. But in my head, this was like a 10-foot long snake that's as big around as a coffee can, which it really, really was not. I know it wasn't, but my memory built it that way because that's how my child mind perceived it.
Trinity Alps salamanders could also have been a hoax. After all, if there were giant salamanders, there should have been some kind of sign of them being there, right? Obviously, they'd be a well-documented species, and I feel that'd also be a big draw to the park, which is why them being made up also makes sense. Come to our awesome park. There's giant salamanders. What better of a catch do you need than that? Look, in the end of the day, I feel like the Trinity Alps salamanders were hellbenders that were dumped as pets and whose size was greatly exaggerated. It feels like the rumors of them dragged out too long.
As silly as it sounds, I would say a Chinese giant salamander over a hellbender were released pet because of California's strong Chinese influence, especially from the 1840s through the 1930s. There was a large immigration population moving from China to the West Coast, right? And they brought a lot of traditions like koi ponds and things like that over with them. It's not unheard of that they would have brought over some giant salamanders too. And in that case, a salamander, once it gets too big for its pool, will literally just get up and leave. Yeah. So if you keep a salamander in a koi pond, it may live there for years and years happily, but once it decides that there's not enough room for it anymore, it'll just climb out and mosey on away to find someplace bigger to live. That could happen. I'm not saying it couldn't have been a hellbender, but the thing about the hellbender is that, people could have taken them, but they were never like something people really kept as pets. And all giant salamanders are rare, but it just seems more plausible to me, I guess, that the culture that was prevalent on the West Coast would have been more likely to have introduced Asian species and we've been introducing Asian species to North America for centuries, so it's not anything new. But obviously, if this did happen, I don't think that there's any around anymore. They may have been a small population that was released into this water system. Maybe sometime at the beginning of the 19th or the end of the 19th or the early 20th century that led to these sightings. Can't be sure, though. Anyway, let him finish up.
For them to just be a hoax with no basis. Hellbenders fit the description of the Trinity Alps salamanders pretty well, minus the 5 to 9 foot long cases, and match the Sacramento River one to a T. I feel the encounters just got exaggerated along the way. And somewhere along the line, they either migrated out of Trinity Alps or were eaten by a bear or something. Or they may still be in bodies of water that cover the Trinity Alps wilderness. Actually, looking into it, bears don't like eating salamanders. So,
Speaking of rodents of unusual size, I think that we did cover that recently. When was that? It's been a minute ago. Yeah, there we go. Episode 150. Episode 150 of Cryptic Corner was rodents of unusual size. Let me drop a link to that. Yeah, because if you missed that, it was a fun one. We talked about Sumatran giant rats, and we talked about nutria, and all these different invasive species.
oh, that's a big hole in my theory. But skunks do eat salamanders, so maybe there's a super skunk or something. They eat salamanders. I mean, like, hey, just one massive cryptid skunk or a bear who just sucks it up and eats the salamanders, and we got a complete picture here. Jokes aside, though, the Trinity Alps giant salamander is an interesting cryptid, as even though it's just a giant salamander, even if true, it's plausible enough to have had several institutions fund expeditions to look for it, with people to this very day believing that it could still be there. And if the exaggerated claims are not exaggerations, dude, that's the biggest salamander ever. Just a big salamander doesn't cut it. Komodo dragon's a big lizard.
Mm-hmm. All right, so these guys are actually they did like a Kickstarter. I think there's a link down here. Let's see, because they're doing an expedition for it. They've got $5,461 to go look for it, though. Trinity Alps Giant Salamander Expedition. If you want to participate in this Kickstarter too, I'll drop a link to that. If you want to contribute to, I would love to see an expedition going down there, but yeah. All right. Let's see here. So we'll let them talk about their expedition a little bit too.
I love eating kids.
These guys
They have a long
are the
intro
scientists
thing.
of
What it is. So say it.
And
shame.
welcome back to Cryptids of the Corn podcast. I am the great and
I like the name of this podcast though, Cryptids of the Corn. That's noise. All right.
mistakeful mystery.
Mistakeful.
I was trying to think of a word.
Is that even a word?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Jay.
Just Jay.
Just
I'm
Jay?
just Jay. Everybody's sick of
That's
that
right.
song.
They are?
At least on Patreon.
Wow.
Because every time you say that, I sing the Ken song.
Oh,
Speeding you
that
guys
thing
up a
again.
little bit
Yeah.
though.
I'm just Ken.
Still never heard it, besides when you sing it.
I've never watched the movie or nothing like that.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
okay, so
right. Yeah,
what-
right.
Why are you so...
I haven't. It's-
There's that bro thing about not wanting to make you watch the Barbie movie. Get over it. It's a good movie. It's cultural commentary. So like, get over it.
It's only in theaters.
Yeah, no, you can pirate it. Got it like 3 copies on DVD over there in the room right
caught
beside
me.
us.
All right, so this is all about the Trinity Alps Giant Salamander Expedition and the Kickstarter that just launched right now on accident. Woo! It was supposed to launch next week, but it launched today because we were having so much trouble getting it going, and I was messing with it. Finally, it said you can activate it. And I'm like, oh, okay, activate it. And it launched.
And it's
I
ready.
thought it was the pre-launch
So
page.
it's live.
It's live. So I just want to kind of take a little bit of time and break down kind of what the money we're asking for, what it goes to, and that kind of stuff. And there's all kinds of cool rewards, from metal salamander cutout signs to T-shirts to a data explanation live video if we get a specimen,
Oh.
all kinds of crazy stuff. But before we get into that part, basically the Trinity Alps Giant Salamander is a North American large salamander that's been seen since the 18...
So I should have a honeybee latte on the way, which is my signature coffee drink for the show. It's from from a local place. Thank you. Appreciate you.
1800s all the way up into modern day in the Trinity Alps in Northern California. This animal makes biological sense. It gets some of the sightings have it up to 9 feet, which is not impossible for giant salamanders. But when you think of the giant Japanese and the giant Chinese, 6.5 feet is kind of where they top out right now, but they can probably reach 7 feet. So seeing a 7-foot salamander, it could be kind of hard to tell if it's a 9 foot or 7 foot long. It's something the size of an alligator.
Especially with water refraction and
I've watched people tell me there's a 12-foot alligator.
yeah,
And looking at like an 8-foot alligator.
yeah.
So just because it's a big, impressive animal, and that's what your brain does. So yeah, what part do you think I should start with, Jay?
Well, I mean, we got a crew. We're
Okay,
taking.
I'll start with the crew. And they'll actually on the Kickstarter eventually. We're going to record it. It was supposed to be recorded next week, but I haven't added it yet because I haven't recorded it yet. There is going to be a video
Yeah, and
with all the crew that's
Okay.
agreed to come
Yeah,
so far.
nice.
They
Here's
explain
their-
what they do for a living. There a whole bunch of high-level biological professionals and wildlife documentarians are coming. But me, myself, and Jay are going. I specialized in endangered species surveys, and I specialized in larval salamander ID, which is very difficult, which we'll talk about with this documentary. That's probably why the Trinity Alps giant salamander has still been avoided being captured on film or documented. David Pounders.
you have to leave open the possibility that it doesn't exist, Jay. I mean, let's be blunt about it. The Barbie movie is not my cup of tea. I liked the Barbie movie. I thought it was cute. Mark, were you disappointed it didn't involve backyard cooking? Boom, more Australian jokes. I thought Oppenheimer was a better movie, but Barbie wasn't bad. I haven't seen Oppenheimer. I know about Oppenheimer, like I know the real history of him. I don't know. Sometimes I find dramatizations of historical figures to be disingenuous. I don't know if Oppenheimer's like that or not, but there was a lot of hype about it.
He's a professor at the I'm going to try to remember all of his stuff.
Off the dome.
Yeah, Missouri University, and he works with the Missouri DNR and all that for salamanders. He's done a lot of hellbender research, which is North America's only documented giant salamander species. And when we talk about surveying methods, his methods come into play with that. Zach Alley, I worked with him for years. He's a famous underwater photographer for freshwater fish and amphibians. He's actually working right now on genetic studies for ambiostoma salamanders.
Oh, my favorites.
Yeah. So he's working on mole salamander genetics right now for his lab he's working with. And then Christian, as you've seen a lot of his work with a lot of paranormal and wildlife documentaries. Me and him, he let me help him on a wildlife documentary for African wildlife that won all kinds of awards. But he's also a famous treasure hunter. He's going to come out and film and help us look for stuff.
Treasure hunter.
But yeah, so that's kind of the crew. And I know I went over very fast. If you go to the Kickstarter, there's a big bio for each of those people,
Right.
to really get an idea of who they are. But the best of the best. And I'm
Yeah.
still talking to one more hellbender professional that she may come with us also. So this animal-
Excuse me, why wasn't I invited? Literally, I'm in the Western United States, and I'm the world's leading cryptozoologist. Why was I left out of this expedition? Why was I not invited? I feel insulted and degraded, and I'm fine, really, honestly.
animal's been looked at before. People have looked for it and stuff like that. The big problem, in our opinion, is that people are looking for the gigantic.
I get that they have to sell tickets and fictionalize people. I just like that, like the average person will just take that at face value. That's why we had such a hard problem convincing people that Christopher Columbus was a chud, right? Because all of our lives we have this fictionalized version of who this man was and what he did and his achievements, and it creates this false notion that he was some kind of hero for European colonization, when he was really just a vicious slave driver. Yeah, the average person is stupid. And then they get mad when you say, "Oh, that's not true about Christopher Columbus," and they're like, "Stop trying to rewrite history." It's like, no, we're trying to fix the history that was rewritten by white people. But I digress. That's not about salamanders.
Adults. We're talking the 6-7-foot salamanders, which there may be very few of now, especially with the habitat destruction that's going on. And they're very cryptic. It's nothing against the people that have looked for them. The giant salamanders, it's kind of an oxymoron when you think about it. They're super hard to find, especially the old ones. they'll get in these little cracks and crevices you will not expect a 6 or 7 foot animal to be shoved in.
Well, they don't get that big if they don't know how to hide.
Exactly. So that's the one thing. So one of the parts of the survey we're going to be doing is it's called snorkel surveying, which basically we line up in the river, snorkels face down, and we crawl up the river. And what we're looking for is hellbender, so giant salamander dens. When I said hellbender, these guys look for hellbenders doing this, but it also works with...
That is CRT. You're right, Maya. I'm gonna get like ICE is gonna pop in here, snag me up, and ship me off to El Salvador for saying things like that. He was a great person. He was a genius. Oppenheimer was a genius. Yeah. But I wonder if he's like Nobel. You know how Nobel, when he invented dynamite, is like, oh man, I invented this terrible thing. I'm going to create the Nobel Prize to basically seek retribution for it, to try to right my wrongs. It'd been nice to see something like that from Oppenheimer. Maybe. I wonder if he regretted it. I'm sure he did. I would have regretted inventing the nuclear bomb, but if he didn't do it, somebody else was going to.
Giant Japanese and giant Chinese salamanders. So we're going to be the start of the snorkel survey to try to ID if there's any dens of giant salamanders. And if there is, we'll set up traps there and try to catch them when they come out at night. They can be kind of active during the day, but most of the time they're going to wait.
That's a good idea, Aunt Jer. Dramatized history should direct people to documentaries if they want to learn more. It could be a good way to introduce more people to documentaries. They did show how he regretted it and was silenced for speaking out on it. Yeah. I thought I had heard that about him just as a person, that he was like, nah, this sucks. I didn't want to do this. I'm a scientist, not a mass murderer. Yeah.
Until it's night. The next step is there's deep pockets in these rivers, and Zach is scuba certified, and Christian's scuba certified. I know Zach's gonna go down there with a lot of his camera gear and stuff like that and check out every nook and cranny, looking for medium to large adults.
Yeah.
And so that's that. And the third part of looking for the adults is Jay and Christian. Jay went out and bought a ROV. It's rated for 500 feet of depth and 600 foot long cable. It's a deep water ROV. And
I could do this. You guys need to invite me. I can snorkel. I can snorkel in these cold waters. I've done it before. Yeah. Bring me with you. Doc Dino-mentary.
We think that some of the big adults may be living in what's called a crater lake up in the top of these mountains, to where, they get like 100 feet deep, but they're, not very wide across. They're very misleading to look at. But the rivers come in and out of them.
Right.
So the adults can still go and breed and go back in there to live, and they're full of like trout and stuff like that. So there's food for them. But yeah, so the ROVs will be a part of that study. The biggest part of the study, and that's why the money we're asking for is a little higher, is the DNA part of the study. There's never, and as far as I could find, ever been a DNA survey done for these guys. And that's the group of crew we put together, including me, specialize in, is DNA studies. Because I can only tell you so much. So I'll try to make sure I post.
Well, are you talking about like eDNA or like direct DNA? Because we would need to know what their DNA looked like in order to contrast it and see if we had the salamanders in the area.
I think other crews have gone out and accidentally caught babies and never realized it.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this is the giant Japanese salamander larva, so the babies, they have external gills. They don't have gills as adults. And another salamander out there is called the giant Pacific salamander, which they top out at 10, 12 inches. They look identical.
Okay.
They look 100% identical. They're not related.
The larva.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the larva and the
Juveniles.
neonates of the Pacific salamander.
What's a neonate?
Neonate is an adult or juvenile that never lost its gills.
Oh, okay.
It happens in salamanders sometimes that they just...
Well, neonate means more than that, because like ostrich is a neonate because they don't develop adult feathers, adult flight feathers. They keep the baby feathers. It's a retention of juvenile characteristics into adulthood. Humans are neonate apes. We look like if you look at a baby chimp, it's a lot more closely proportioned to a human baby than an adult human and an adult chimp are, right? Because we retain so much neoteny, and that's a byproduct of the domestication process too, which is why dogs have big puppy dog eyes and giant heads compared to wolves. And what other animals have neonate characteristics? when it comes to salamanders, the one that really pops out are axolotls and olms. Actually, was going to cover olms if this did in the bestiary if this one didn't get the spot. I just didn't want to double salamander you guys today.
They like to stay in the water longer than the average. So they catch a lot of neonate Pacific salamanders out there, which are 8 inches long. But there's pictures I can show you, everybody at home, that compares them to a giant Pacific or a giant Japanese salamander larva, which will be 6 to 8 inches long. Identical. There is, for most people, for the naked eye, it's very, very, very minute measurements in the head and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So the first $2,000 of the money is the DNA survey part of it. We have a lab that's pretty much going to run it for cost for us, which is amazing because to do this, I mean, I won't. It's a lot of money to try to do as many DNA samples as we're going to do.
A whole lot of money.
I mean, more than this house.
Which is why a lot.
Yes, you are domesticated apes. I hate to be the bearer of bad news if anybody didn't know that.
You know, things like this don't happen.
They don't happen. So we got a lab that's already agreed, and it's because it's David and Zach have both extensively worked with this lab, and you know, so they've scratched each other's backs and that kind of stuff. So this is a favor for those guys, and so yeah,
When
they're
is
running
this
them at cost
expedition?
for basically just the materials, the vials and stuff of liquid. And it's going to be an extremely scientific process. It's probably going to be one of the most scientific aquatic studies here in North America for a cryptid, as far as the amount of lab work and stuff like that, and the amount of all of these the guys that worked with endangered species, DNA harvest, endangered species surveys, the way that you catalog stuff. It's going to be so data heavy, which is one of the rewards for backers, because it's going to be a lot of data, which is exciting, because a lot of cryptid studies, which is not.
They don't have a schedule for their expedition. They got an FAQ that's blank. Comments. Community. Are they still doing things? Are y'all still working on this, or did you drop it? I'm seriously curious, because they like raised a whole bunch of money for it, and it's been a year. Have they got anything set? Expedition 2025. I guess we'll see what happens. We'll follow this, but you know.
Nothing against them, but there's not a lot of data.
So you have access to that.
You'll get tons and tons of data.
Morning, Ryan.
So the big part is catching babies, looking for. We're allowed to take some back, so we really get a couple or a handful that were like, these guys are really different. You know, to us, you know, to the naked eye, to most people, they probably look the same. They look like a salamander.
Right.
But to us, you know, we get a couple or a handful that are like, this is something special. We'll bring them back and we'll grow them out. And, you know, if they get 4 foot, 5 foot long, then you know. And giant salamanders love to grow fast when they have a lot of food. They kind of grow to, you know, their food consumption rates. So that's the first 2,000 is the DNA part of the study. The second 2,000 is basically gear and running a giant campsite while we're out there. And then the third 2,000 is for travel and food.
Right.
The goal was a week. And yeah, so what am I forgetting?
I think you hit all the points for at least what we're raising the money for.
I think what we'll do in a couple weeks, we're going to redo the Chinese Alps giant salamander episode.
Okay.
And really dissect it and pull it apart for the main show.
Sounds good to me.
Really, I know this is kind of an impromptu thing because...
Yeah, I'll break it all down in one quick.
I did forget something. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's Crypts of the Corn combined with some of the top scientists in IDing, finding salamanders, and we're all getting together. We're driving across the country to the Trinity Alps in California. We're going to spend a week in the rivers and lakes up there with some of the best equipment we can get. And again, the best crew that can be assembled to find this salamander. And we're going to spend a week up there, and we are going to find this salamander.
I want to go. Invite me, cryptids of the corn. I want to come with you. 2 sign salamanders. It sounds like so much fun.
And we're going to bring it back to life, and we're going to get it endangered species protection.
Thank you. That was the last thing I forgot. Why this is so important to happen right now. Is I do believe the Chinese Alps giant salamander still exists, but I do not think it'll exist in the next 2 or 3 decades.
So save the salamanders.
And this could be extended to various species of non-giant salamanders of the California mountains as well, because they are all suffering at the hands of industrialization. Captive Desk up in here stinging himself. Dave, get it together.
They are literally... Their area has been so remote for so long, and then in the recent decade, it's starting to be eaten up by industry of tourism, recreation, stuff like that. Their dams. Dams are the hardest thing for aquatic environments. The main lake that they were all originally seen is dammed up.
Right.
And that's actually after they dammed it is when they started seeing dead giant salamanders in the Sacramento River. and they were like, "Oh, somebody dumped a whole bunch of Japanese giant salamanders," and it's like, you don't understand. We can't transport a hellbender 100 miles, and you think somebody got one of these over on a boat?
Yeah. Probably. Oh yeah.
From
for
Japan.
Sure. For sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, when they were smaller, yeah, I do. Like we've imported lots of animals from Japan. I'm not sure why that's, or China. I would say China would probably be a better source for them, just based on where people were coming to California from at the beginning of the 19th century. But yeah.
So, and at that time they weren't farmed. Right now they're commercially farmed. The giant Chinese salamanders are commercially farmed. So now you can actually, if you were in Asia, you can get them. But before that, they were, they were hyper endangered in the wild, red listed.
Right.
You can't find them.
Right.
But now they're, yeah.
Although they weren't red listed at the time that this would have allegedly been brought over, though. There wasn't even a red list back then.
So this isn't only an adventure to go prove the existence of a cryptid. It is to save the existence of a cryptid.
We're
One
going to
that
change history.
I fully believe is probably on the verge of extinction in the next couple of
There
decades.
you go. You
And
stung
if anybody's
Mark.
going to find the salamander, it's going to be this crew right here.
I can't believe how much. I know why I'm excited. I just can't believe how much
You stung Mark, Dave. Hopefully he's not
you
allergic.
get excited about this one.
Well, I want to go.
Anybody
to
got
the
an
mountains and swim
EpiPen?
over.
I hope. What do we see? A bear.
Then I got these mitts. Take care of it.
I got these mitts.
So will you join us? Do you find our cause worthy? If so, bounce on over to our Kickstarter.
It's the only link below this.
Yes.
It's the only one.
As little as $1 or as much as you want. Anything will help us. As long as we reach our goal, we will find this salamander.
And before we go, should I tell about the tiers? Some of the perks.
Well, there's different perks and tiers, but I guess they can see all that once they're there.
But I just want to do. There will be a live show for some of the, depending on what tier you get, to explain.
You need
the
to
game. It's free. Like it'll.
If you want to get perks, bring me along. I can be a perk. I'll be like, yeah, if you all, if we get this many subscribers, then we will bring the world's foremost cryptozoologist with us on this expedition. Yeah, that could be a perk.
Just be for you guys.
Yeah.
Whoever backs the thing to a certain level, it's all in there. But it'll be before we publish anything and all that kind of stuff.
Early access to all the info we get. We
and
recover.
If we get a live specimen, you guys get to see it first.
Right.
I have been the great and powerful mystery.
And I've been Jay.
Hopefully you guys can help us out. Even if you can't financially support it, please share it.
Share, 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 share.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to CrypticCorner podcast. Remember, the best way to support the show is share it with
Yeah,
your
there's
friends.
been hellbenders in here, Robert.
But if you are
All right,
craving
so that
more
was
of the
Cryptids of the Corn, and they're a podcast, but they cover a lot of the same kind of stuff I do. If you're into that, obviously they're less skeptical than I am, but most cryptozoologists are. I'm quite skeptical as a cryptozoologist, whereas a lot of them are just like, I want to believe, man. I want to believe. But, I was there before when I was younger, too. I wanted Bigfoot to be real. I wanted thylacines to still be around. I wanted, lake monsters to be discovered. But as you get older and time goes by, you start to realize it's just not in the cards. I hope that someday some cryptids are actually discovered to be real. This one particularly is a good candidate for something they could find maybe alive in some remote region of the mountain range or some isolated pool somewhere where a relict population was able to thrive without the interventions of man. If they are hidden out there, if they're still hiding out, I wish them luck on remaining hidden because people are really interested in finding them, and if they did find them, it'd be like it'd be newsworthy. It really would. A giant West Coast California salamander would be really cool. But what do you think? Do you think that this was a unique species indigenous to the area? Somebody's released pet hellbender or Chinese or Japanese giant salamanders? Do you think that they were there for a while and that they're gone now? Let me know in the comments down below. And please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time.